Have you ever stood in the kitchen, cutting up a bowl of fresh fruit for someone you love, maybe your aging mother, your granddad, or even for yourself, thinking, this is healthy, this is the right thing to do? But then something unexpected happens. A dizzy spell, a moment of confusion, a trip to the emergency room, and you're left thinking, wait, could it have been the food? But it was just fruit. I know. It sounds almost ridiculous. We grow up being told, eat your fruits and vegetables. We associate fruit with health, with nature, with doing the right thing. But here's the thing they never tell us. Not all fruits are safe for aging bodies. See, the same apple that boosts energy for a young adult might raise blood sugar too high in a diabetic grandma. The grapefruit that looks like a good breakfast choice could actually block her heart medication from working at all. And as a brain doctor, after years of treating strokes and memory loss in older adults, I've come across something that truly shocked me. There are fruits that, when eaten regularly or at the wrong time, can quietly raise stroke risk. Not years from now. Overnight. And the worst part? You'd never suspect them. They're the fruits you see every week in the market. They're the ones labeled heart healthy in magazines. They're the ones caregivers serve with love, not knowing they could be planting seeds for tragedy. But before you panic, I want to tell you something important. This video isn't about fear. It's about clarity. Because once you know which fruits are problematic and why, they stop being a threat. You stop guessing. You stop second-guessing. You start protecting. So stay with me, because today I'm going to walk you through 5 surprising fruits that may increase stroke risk in seniors, including one that completely shocked me in my medical practice. It's not the sugary, exotic ones you'd expect. And the reason it causes damage? Let's just say, most people have no clue it's even dangerous. By the end of this video, you'll know what to look out for, what to remove from the fruit basket, and most importantly, how to keep the aging brain safe. Not just from stroke, but from the silent decline that starts in the little things we overlook. Now, before we jump in, tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed a strange reaction after someone ate a healthy fruit? A spike in blood pressure? A sudden weakness? Comment, I'm here, if you want to learn how to protect your brain, or the brain of someone you deeply love. And if this kind of wisdom is what you came for, if you believe aging should be informed, empowered, and respected, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe to Thriving Oldies. This is where we shine a light on the truths nobody talks about. And together, we age with grace, dignity, and strength. Let's get started. Let me tell you about Mr. Adewale, 82 years old, active. He walked every morning, played with his grandkids, and swore by his daily glass of grapefruit juice. He'd read that it was packed with vitamin C, that it was good for the heart. He felt like he was doing everything right. Then it started. Tiny things. First, a dizzy spell after climbing the stairs. Then confusion. A lost thought mid-sentence. His daughter thought it was just age catching up. Until one afternoon, he slumped in his armchair, unable to speak for nearly 2 minutes. A transient ischemic attack. A mini-stroke. We later traced it back. Not to a disease. Not even to a new medication. But to something he thought was helping him, grapefruit juice. Now here's where this gets serious. Grapefruit isn't just a fruit. It's a chemical interrupter. It contains compounds called furanocoumarins. These interfere with how your liver processes certain medications, especially those for blood pressure, cholesterol, and even anxiety. What does that mean in plain language? If you're taking something like a statin or a calcium channel blocker, the grapefruit blocks the enzyme that breaks it down. So the medication builds up in your body like water behind a dam. Too much, too fast, and boom, your blood pressure might drop dangerously. Or worse, spike. Either way, it puts stress on the brain. And for an aging body, that stress can lead to stroke. The most heartbreaking part? People think they're being healthy. They skip the soda. They reach for fruit. They think, it's natural, so it must be good. But that logic doesn't always hold up, especially when medication is in the mix. And let me tell you, I've seen this mistake over and over, not just from seniors, but from their loving families. A well-meaning daughter brings her dad fresh squeezed grapefruit juice every morning. A son preps a fruit salad for his hypertensive mom and tosses in a few wedges. All done out of love. All done unknowingly. So here's a gentle but firm tip. If you or your loved one is on medication, take a moment today to check the label. Look for a grapefruit warning. If it's there, no matter how fresh or organic it is, switch it out. Try oranges. Try blueberries. You still get the antioxidants, but without the drug interactions. And if you're not sure, ask the pharmacist. Better a quick question now than a crisis later. But don't exhale just yet, because grapefruit isn't the only sneaky culprit hiding in plain sight. There's another one that shows up in breakfast plates, lunchboxes, smoothies, and snack bowls all across the world. One that's loved for its creaminess and convenience. But when eaten too often by older adults, especially those with kidney problems, it can quietly tip the scales toward danger. Let's talk about bananas and the potassium paradox that could be raising your stroke risk without you ever realizing it. I remember the day she walked into my clinic, gripping her father's arm like her whole world depended on it. He was pale. His heartbeat was irregular, like a drum losing rhythm. She was in tears, saying, "Doctor, I don't understand." I was feeding him healthy food. Just bananas and boiled eggs every day. That's supposed to be good, right? And she wasn't wrong to think that. Bananas are often seen as the go-to fruit for energy. Soft, affordable, easy to digest. Packed with potassium, which helps muscles, nerves, and the heart. You hear potassium, and you think heart strength, hydration, recovery. But here's what most people don't realize. There's such a thing as too much of a good thing. Especially when you're older. As we age, the kidneys, the body's filtration system, don't work as efficiently. They slow down. And in many seniors, especially those with high blood pressure, diabetes, or early kidney disease, that decline happens quietly. So when the kidneys can't flush out excess potassium the way they used to, it builds up in the blood. And that's when the real trouble starts. Too much potassium can throw off your heart's natural rhythm. We call it hyperkalemia, a fancy word, but with very real consequences. It can cause palpitations, chest pain, muscle weakness, and yes, it can mimic or trigger stroke-like symptoms. In that woman's case, her father's potassium levels were nearly double the safe upper limit. But he was eating 2 to 3 bananas a day, thinking it was safe. That, combined with reduced kidney function, turned his healthy routine into a dangerous one. And here's where the problem gets deeper. We're told potassium is always good. You hear people say it balances sodium. It helps with cramps. It's what athletes use, right? But the aging body is a different system altogether. What works for a 25-year-old runner doesn't always work for a 75-year-old retiree. So what can you do? It's simple. Stick to 1 banana a day, unless your doctor tells you otherwise. And if your loved one is already on blood pressure meds, a diuretic, or has been told they have borderline kidney issues, ask about their potassium levels. Also, always pair fruit, especially potassium-rich ones, with water. Hydration helps the kidneys flush and process nutrients better. Fruit without enough water is like soap without rinsing. It builds up instead of washing through. And please, don't stop eating fruit altogether. Just be aware of how the aging body handles it. Because what nourishes can also overwhelm when systems slow down. Now, bananas may surprise some folks. But what's coming next is a fruit that's actually praised for its sleep benefits. Some even call it nature's melatonin. It's sweet. It's tiny. It's often served in a beautiful bowl at bedtime. But for someone with insulin resistance or fragile blood vessels, it might be quietly contributing to inflammation inside the brain. Let's talk about cherries and the sticky sweetness that might not be so sweet after all. Let me tell you about Mr. Thompson, 86 years old, lived alone, sharp-minded, loved his routine, and every evening, right after dinner, he'd settle into his recliner with a small porcelain bowl filled with fresh, dark cherries. He called them his sweet comfort, said they helped him sleep, said they made him feel young again. And honestly, who could argue with that? They were fresh, natural, no candy, no soda, no processed junk, just fruit, right? But a few weeks later, his daughter noticed something. He was more tired in the mornings, slower to get up. His hands trembled slightly when he reached for his cup of tea. They checked his blood sugar. It was elevated, consistently, not during the day, but overnight. That's when we realized what was happening. The cherries, that innocent bowl of cherries, taken every night with love and comfort, was slowly nudging his blood sugar into dangerous territory. And in someone with prediabetes, that's a risk we cannot afford to ignore. See, here's what many people don't understand. Natural sugar is still sugar. Your body doesn't go easier on it just because it comes from a tree instead of a candy wrapper. And cherries, especially the sweet varieties like Bing and Rainier, are loaded with fructose, a type of natural sugar that can raise blood glucose quickly. For a healthy adult with no insulin resistance, that rise might barely register. But for a senior, especially one with prediabetes or early-stage metabolic syndrome, that sugar spike can set off a chain reaction. It fuels inflammation. It stresses already thinning blood vessels. It contributes to oxidative stress in the brain. And over time, it raises the risk of stroke. Quietly, silently, without warning. You see, the blood vessels in our brain, especially in aging adults, are like delicate threads. They don't react well to pressure. And when that pressure builds suddenly, whether from high blood sugar, high blood pressure, or both, something can snap. That's how strokes happen. Not always from big, dramatic causes. Sometimes, it's just a bowl of fruit at the wrong time of day. Now let's be clear. I'm not saying cherries are bad. In fact, they have amazing anti-inflammatory properties and are rich in antioxidants. But timing matters, portion matters, and the type of cherry matters too. So if you, or someone you love, loves cherries, here's what I recommend. Go for tart cherries over sweet ones. They have less sugar and more melatonin, which actually can support sleep without spiking your glucose. Eat them earlier in the day. The body processes sugar better in the morning and afternoon than it does late at night. And if you're watching blood sugar, pair them with a handful of nuts. The fat helps slow down sugar absorption. Little changes like these can protect the brain, protect the heart, and keep you or your loved one thriving longer. Now, I know some of this may be surprising, but it's only going to get more surprising from here. Because next, we're looking at a fruit that's praised in many cultures as a miracle oil, a superfood, something everyone seems to be adding to smoothies, soups, and skincare routines. But for seniors, especially those with high cholesterol or a history of stroke, it could quietly be making things worse. Let's talk about coconut, the tropical fruit with a fatty secret. Let me introduce you to Mama Charles, 84 years old, full of life, always smiling. She had a reputation for her hearty laughter and her homemade cooking, especially her famous coconut rice. A few years back, she made a shift, started using coconut oil in everything, soups, sauces, even in her morning tea. She'd read an article online that said it was a miracle oil, that it helped with memory, that it was heart-friendly, that it could even prevent Alzheimer's. So, like many others, she made the switch, thinking she was doing something good for her body. But when her cholesterol test came back, her LDL, the bad cholesterol, had skyrocketed. And here's where the real problem began. She also had a family history of stroke. Her father, her older sister, her cousin, all of them had suffered strokes after the age of 70. When we pieced it all together, the picture was painfully clear. Too much coconut oil, too much saturated fat, too much pressure on an aging vascular system. Now don't get me wrong. Coconut is technically a fruit, but it's a fatty one. And not all fats are created equal. Coconut oil is about 90% saturated fat. That's more than butter, more than lard. And in older adults, especially those with fragile arteries or existing cardiovascular concerns, that kind of fat can be dangerous. Saturated fats raise LDL cholesterol, the kind that sticks to artery walls, narrowing the space where blood flows. Now imagine that narrowing inside the delicate blood vessels of the brain. Just a little plaque, a tiny clot, and suddenly oxygen can't reach a part of the brain. That's a stroke. And here's what makes it worse. Coconut oil is sold as natural, organic, exotic. It comes in glass jars with golden labels that whisper wellness. And yes, it does have some benefits in small, controlled amounts. But here's the trap. Natural doesn't always mean safe, especially for aging bodies, especially for brains already battling inflammation, high blood pressure, or cholesterol buildup. And let's not forget coconut flakes, or coconut milk in curries and smoothies. It adds up, quietly, daily. And before you know it, the brain is under pressure it can't afford. So what's the smarter choice? White heavy checkmark, use olive oil instead. It's rich in heart-healthy monounsaturated fats that actually help lower bad cholesterol. White heavy checkmark, limit coconut products to occasional treats. A spoon in the pot once a week won't hurt. But a daily drizzle? That's where it gets risky. White heavy checkmark, get your lipids checked regularly. Don't guess. Don't wait for symptoms. Know your numbers, especially LDL and HDL levels. Because here's the truth. You can love coconut and still love your brain more. Now, we've covered a lot already. But there's one more fruit I need to warn you about. This one shocked me the most in my years of brain care. Not because it's sugary, not because it's fatty, but because it's deceptively healthy looking and quietly harmful in a different way. It doesn't spike sugar. It doesn't clog arteries. Instead, it drains your body, pulls water from your system. And in seniors, especially those on medication, this can become a ticking time bomb. Let's talk about dried apricots and the hidden danger of dehydration they carry. Her name was Mama Rose. Widowed, lived alone, always graceful, always kind. She used to keep a small container of dried apricots beside her favorite armchair, called them her little joys. She'd nibble on them throughout the day, especially in the afternoons while watching her soaps. And why not? They're fruit, right? She figured they were a much better choice than candy or cookies. No added sugar, no chocolate, just fruit, real dried fruit. But then, one quiet Thursday afternoon, something changed. Her neighbor knocked and found her slurring her speech, confused, unsteady on her feet. They rushed her to the ER. She hadn't had a stroke yet, but her electrolyte balance was completely off. She was dehydrated, her potassium was sky high, and her blood pressure was wildly unstable. And that's when the pieces fell into place. She was taking diuretics, water pills, for her blood pressure. They already made her body lose water. Add in handfuls of dried apricots, which are loaded with potassium and fiber that pull even more water from the body during digestion, and her system was running on empty. What most people don't know is this. Dried fruits are not just shrunken versions of fresh fruits. They're concentrated. A handful of dried apricots can hold 3 to 4 times the sugar and potassium of a fresh serving. Now, for a healthy young adult with no medications, that might not be a big deal. But for someone in their 70s or 80s, especially those on diuretics, blood pressure meds, or dealing with kidney strain, that's a dangerous cocktail. Dehydration in seniors isn't just about thirst, it's a direct risk for stroke. Here's why. When the body is low on fluids, the blood thickens. Think of a river drying out. The current slows, the mud thickens, and it becomes harder to move. That's what happens in your blood vessels. Thicker blood means slower circulation and a greater chance of clots. And when a clot blocks a vessel in the brain, even for just a few seconds. That's all it takes. People think dehydration is just a summer concern. But in seniors, it can happen year-round. Quietly, gradually, fatally. So what's the lesson here? Dried fruit isn't evil. It's not about shame, it's about awareness. Backhand index pointing right. If you or your loved one enjoys dried apricots, that's okay. But limit it to a small handful. We're talking 4 to 5 pieces max. Backhand index pointing right, and never eat them dry. Always pair dried fruit with a full glass of water. Think of it as balancing the scale. What they take in, the water must give back. Backhand index pointing right. If someone's on diuretics, talk to their doctor before adding potassium-rich dried fruits into their daily routine. Because sometimes, it's not the big decisions that harm us. It's the tiny ones, the snacks, the sips, the silent habits, repeated every day without a second thought. And that's why this next part is so important. Because now, you understand the dangers. You've heard about grapefruit and its sneaky drug interactions. Bananas and their potassium overload. Cherries and their sugary sweetness. Coconut and its artery-clogging fats. And dried apricots, silently pulling water from aging bodies. But I know what you may be feeling now. A heaviness in your chest. A pit in your stomach. That scary thought of, what if I've been doing this wrong all along? You're not alone. And that's where we're heading next. Let's talk about the emotional weight of caring for an aging loved one. And how knowledge like this can be the very thing that lifts it. It's strange, isn't it? How something as innocent as a piece of fruit, so colorful, so natural, so trusted, could quietly turn against the very people we love most. We grew up believing that fruit was the gold standard of health. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We never thought twice about offering a banana to dad, a handful of cherries to grandma, a spoonful of coconut oil to boost memory. It's almost unthinkable that something so good could cause harm. That fruit, of all things, could become a risk for stroke, confusion, or worse. But here we are. And it hurts. Because when you love someone, the last thing you want is to unknowingly contribute to their decline. Especially when your intentions were pure. Especially when all you were trying to do was care. I want you to know something. You are not a failure. You are not to blame. You are a caregiver, a partner, a daughter, a son, a brave soul trying to navigate a world that doesn't always explain the fine print. And the truth is, this isn't about fear. It's not about guilt. It's about clarity. Because once you know how these small choices can affect the aging brain, you're no longer helpless. You're no longer stuck in the dark, hoping you're doing the right thing. Now you're equipped. And that's powerful. That's love, informed and intentional. So what do you do with this knowledge? You start small. You go into the kitchen and check the fruit basket. You look at the grocery list and ask, is this still a safe choice for mom? You have that gentle conversation. Not with panic, but with compassion. Maybe you say, Dad, I watched this video today. It talked about how certain fruits can affect stroke risk. It made me think about you. Can we talk about what's in your diet right now? Yes, it might feel awkward. Yes, you might meet resistance. But behind that moment of discomfort, there is the possibility of prevention, of protection, of life extended and life enriched. And that's what we're here for. You see, aging doesn't have to be a downward spiral. It doesn't have to be the quiet letting go of everything once known. It can be vibrant, connected, joyful, but only when we understand how delicate the body becomes with time, and how every choice we make can either strengthen or strain. This isn't about cutting out all fruit. It's about being mindful. It's about knowing what your loved one's body needs right now, not what worked 30 years ago. And if you've made mistakes in the past, welcome to the club. We all have. But now that you know better, you can do better. And that's the most loving thing anyone can do. So take a breath, wipe away the guilt, and take the next step forward with grace. Because you are not alone. And your care, your presence, your attention to detail, It matters more than you know. So let's take a moment to breathe and gently recap what we've uncovered today. We talked about 5 fruits, each one loved, trusted, and often served with the best intentions. But for our elders, for those on medications, for anyone with a history of stroke or heart concerns, these seemingly innocent choices can quietly carry risk. Grapefruit, with its hidden power to interfere with blood pressure and cholesterol medications. Bananas, packed with potassium that can build up dangerously in aging kidneys. Cherries, sweet and tempting, but sugar-loaded and inflammatory for those with insulin resistance. Coconut, hailed as a miracle fat, yet thick with saturated fats that quietly clog delicate arteries. And dried apricots, those chewy little treats that absorb water, sneak in sugar, and dehydrate the body from the inside out. They don't scream danger. They don't come with warning signs. But they matter, because in the world of elderly care, everything matters. Now, I want to hear from you. Backhand index pointing right, which of these fruits surprised you the most? Backhand index pointing right, did any of them make you think twice about your loved one's snack drawer, or even your own? Backhand index pointing right, or maybe you've seen a strange reaction after eating one of these, but never quite made the connection? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, because this isn't just about sharing information. It's about building a community, a place where we can ask questions, share stories, and protect each other with wisdom and care. And if today's video gave you a moment of clarity, if it helped you understand something that once felt confusing or hidden, then please go ahead and tap the like button. Not for me, but for every caregiver, every adult child, every grandparent out there who needs this kind of information served with gentleness and truth. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Thriving Oldies. Because this space, it's more than a channel. It's a companion for the journey, where we don't just talk about aging. We talk about thriving with strength, dignity, and hope. So until next time, my friend, take care of your choices. Take care of your loved ones. And don't forget to take care of yourself too. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Let's keep growing stronger, wiser, and more connected. One mindful choice at a time. Stay safe, stay informed, and above all, stay thriving.